Hello everyone, my name is Jinjos and welcome to my playthrough of Bageltop's Marvel Legendary campaign. Today we're going to be continuing our day of helping Spider-Man knocking things off his to-do list. Let's not waste any time and jump right in. Of note, this will be a summary of the narration. I highly encourage all of you to play through the campaign yourself. Mission 12. The Clone Saga. As the clock strikes 2 o'clock, Peter remembers his meeting with the Nestor Foundation. We arrive at a towering Manhattan office building and take the elevator up to the 12th floor. The receptionist buzzes you into Professor Sin's office. As you walk in, a voice greets you. It has been some time. I enjoy your entanglement on the West Coast, but I'm sure you didn't expect me again. And yet, I have been looking forward to this day. Welcome. Much to your horror, you recognize the voice. As the high-back chair slowly spins around, you see Nathan Essex, Mr. Sinister, standing before you. Peter looks over and says, "Mr. Sinister, I presume. I recognize you from your yearbook photo." He greets you and says, "I should thank you, Peter, for the blood samples you sent in were quite helpful. In fact, I have learned much more about your arachnid genetics than I had ever expected. Observe." He presses a button on his desk and a panel in the wall slides open. Behind it, you see a metal cage, and within it is Peter Parker. "With your genetics sample, I was able to create a perfect clone of you. Now all that remains is to eliminate you, Parker. Then my new Spider-Man can take your place." Peter's eyes narrow. "I always wanted a brother, but not like this." "Hey, Professor, think fast," Peter quips as he leaps over the table at the villain. Looking over your team, we decide to use Iron Man, Cyclops, Spider-Man, Black Cat, and Iceman to take on Mr. Sinister. Moving into setup, we will be taking on the Clone Saga scheme. This scheme will include 8 twists, and when one is drawn, each player will have to reveal 2 identical non-gray heroes, or they will have to discard down to 3 cards. If 2 villains with the same name escape, or the villain deck runs out, evil will win. We will be taking on Mr. Sinister, who begins with 8 HP, but it is increased by 1 for each bystander he captures. When a Master Strike is drawn, he will capture a bystander, and then each player with 6 or more cards will have to discard cards equal to the number of bystanders he has captured, or reveal a covert hero. Following the campaign guide determines that he will be assisted by the Subterrania and the Marauder villain group. They will hire the Sentinels to be their henchmen. Our starting HQ will contain Unending Energy, Determination, Endless Inventory, another copy of Unending Energy, and Ice Slide. Pretty decent opening HQ with 2 of Cyclops' uncommon cards, a very strong archetype that one of our players will be trying to hone in on for sure. Miles wins the tallest Cheese Whiz Cracker contest and starts us off. Miles draws 3 agents, 3 troopers, and then a Sentinel from the villain deck, which when fought will cause us to KO a hero. He plays out and plants his flag by recruiting Determination, aiming for those unending energies as soon as possible. It's replaced by Web Shooter. He fights the Sentinel and KOs an agent. He passes. Harrison draws 5 agents, 1 trooper, and then a Minotaur from the villain deck, which will capture 2 bystanders when it enters. It also has the burrow mechanic, meaning that when it is fought, it will move to the streets unless there is a villain already occupying that space. He plays out and takes a step into the tech hero archetype by recruiting Web Shooter and Endless Inventory, replacing them with Ice Slide and the 3rd copy of Unending Energy. He passes. Miles draws 5 agents, 1 trooper, and then a Sentinel from the villain deck. He plays out and recruits Ice Slide, which will pair very well with the Unending Energy that he is enviously staring at. It's replaced by Spider-Man's rare card, the Amazing Spider-Man, which when played will have them look at the top 3 cards of their deck, drawing all cards that cost 2 or less. He passes. Harrison draws 3 agents, 3 troopers, and then a Chimera from the villain deck. She gets +3 for each bystander she captures, and when she enters, we will look at the top 3 cards of the villain deck and capture each bystander revealed. The top 3 cards are another copy of Chimera, a Master Strike, and a Scalp Hunter. They're placed back on top in a random order. He plays out and recruits the Amazing Spider-Man, replacing it with Optic Blast. He takes out Chimera before she gets any bigger, and passes. Miles draws 2 agents, 3 troopers, Ice Slide, and then a Scalp Hunter from the villain deck. He will get +1 HP for each bystander captured, and when he enters, he will capture a bystander from each victory pile. Being so early in the game, this has no effect. He plays out and takes out a Sentinel, KOing a trooper, not wanting to lessen his chances of recruiting an Unending Energy early. He passes. Harrison draws an agent, 3 troopers, the Amazing Spider-Man, Endless Inventory, and then a Chimera from the villain deck. We reveal the top 3 cards, with them being a Moloid, Master Strike, and a Scheme Twist. They're placed back on top in a random order. He plays Amazing Spider-Man, drawing 2 agents and a trooper. Endless Inventory will draw a Web Shooter, and Web Shooter will rescue a bystander, and then draw us an agent. He plays out and is shocked he only has 4 recruit and 4 attack after drawing so many cards. He takes out Scalp Hunter to use up all of his attack. While there's nothing in the HQ that synergizes well with his deck, he decides to still recruit Optic Blast to gain some damage and dig for something he wants. It's replaced by Cyclops' rare card, X-Men United, which grants a whopping 6 attack, but gets even stronger by gaining 2 attack for each X-Men hero played previously. He passes. Miles draws 5 agents, Determination, and then a Moloid from the villain deck, which has the Burrow ability, and will KO a hero when we fight. He plays out, discarding an agent, and recruits one of the Unending Energies, replacing it with Great Responsibility. He passes. Harrison draws 4 agents, a Trooper, the Amazing Spider-Man, and then a Master Strike from the villain deck. Mr. Sinister captures a bystander. Harrison mistakenly doesn't see that Amazing Spider-Man is a covert card, and discards a Trooper. He plays Amazing Spider-Man, drawing 2 Troopers, and revealing Optic Blast. He plays out, and keeps collecting Spider-Man cards with Great Responsibility, replacing it with Optic Blast. He passes. Miles draws 2 Troopers, Ice Slide, Unending Energy, Determination, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Neither can reveal, so Miles discards a Trooper and then an Ice Slide, but he gives no good reason as to why. He plays out, using Unending Energy to prevent the discard. He recruits Optic Blast, replacing it with Deep Freeze. He takes out Chimera, and passes. Harrison draws Web Shooter, Endless Inventory, Optic Blast, and then a Blockbuster from the villain deck. He will gain +2 HP for each bystander he captures, and when he enters, he will capture a bystander if there's a villain in the bank, and have them also capture a bystander. He plays Web Shooter, rescuing a paramedic for no effect, and drawing an agent. He plays Endless Inventory activated, drawing 2 agents. He plays out, discarding an agent. Not wanting to pass on recruiting something, he recruits Deep Freeze, as it is a free cantrip, replacing it with Arc Reactor. He takes out a Moloid, rescuing a bystander, KOing a Trooper, and burrowing the Moloid. He passes. Miles draws 4 agents, 2 Troopers, and then a Master Strike from the villain deck. Sinister will capture a bystander. Miles can't reveal, so he discards 2 Troopers. He plays out, and recruits Ice Slide, replacing it with Repulsory Ray. He passes. Harrison draws 2 agents, 2 Troopers, the Amazing Spider-Man, Responsibility, and then a Giganto from the villain deck. He has the Burrow mechanic, and when fought, he will cause that player to draw 8 cards in their next hand. Responsibility draws a Trooper. Amazing Spider-Man draws 2 agents and a Trooper. He plays out, and decides that he has enough ranged heroes to justify recruiting a Repulsory Ray, replacing it with Black Cat's rare card, Cat Burglar. This card grants 5 attack, and when played will rescue a bystander from other players' victory pile, unless they reveal a covert hero. It also grants +1 attack for each bystander rescued this turn if it's activated by a Spider-Man friend hero. He fights Moloid, and KOs a Trooper. He passes. Miles draws 5 agents, Determination, and then a Master Strike from the villain deck. Sinister will capture a bystander, and since Miles can't reveal, will cause him to discard 3 agents. With his hopes dashed of getting another Unending Energy, he passes. Harrison draws an agent, Endless Inventory, Repulsor Ray, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Harrison can't reveal, discarding an agent, and Endless Inventory, with only 1 card in hand. He passes. Miles draws a Trooper, Ice Slide, Optic Blast, Unending Energy, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. He can't reveal, so he discards a Trooper, though he could have done Unending Energy to prevent the discard. He plays out, and draws First Blood on Mr. Sinister, rescuing 3 bystanders, and drawing Human Experimentation, which will cause him to capture bystanders equal to the number of villains in the city, which is 3. He passes. Harrison draws 2 agents, Web Shooter, and then a Sentinel from the villain deck. He plays Web Shooter rescuing a bystander, and drawing the Amazing Spider-Man, which he plays. He draws a Trooper, Responsibility, and reveals an Optic Blast and replaces it. With Optic Blast on top of his deck, Responsibility won't succeed, so he passes. Miles draws 2 agents, 2 Troopers, Ice Slide, Unending Energy, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Miles can't reveal, so he discards 2 agents and Unending Energy, which will bounce back to his hand. He plays out, and decides to take out Giganto for a nice fat hand next turn. He passes. Harrison draws an agent, Optic Blast, Deep Freeze, and then a bystander from the villain deck, which the Sentinel will capture. He plays Deep Freeze, drawing the Amazing Spider-Man, which he plays. He draws 2 agents, and reveals Repulsory Ray, which he replaces. He plays out, and discards an agent. Wanting to thin out his deck, he takes out the Sentinel, rescuing a bystander, and KOing an agent. He passes. Miles draws 5 agents, a trooper, determination, ice slide, and then a Giganto from the villain deck. Not the most exciting hand after fighting a Giganto. He plays out all of his recruit cards and recruits X-Men United, replacing it with a Repulsor Ray. He passes. Harrison draws 2 agents, a trooper, Repulsor Ray, Web Shooter, Endless Inventory, and then a Sentinel from the villain deck. He plays Web Shooter, rescuing a bystander, and drawing a trooper. He plays an activated Endless Inventory, drawing a trooper and Responsibility. Responsibility draws an agent. He plays out and decides to keep recruiting ranged heroes and snaps up Repulsor Ray, replacing it with Responsibility. He decides to take out Blockbuster over Megatar, just in case he does get a hold of another bystander. He rescues a news reporter, which will draw him an agent. He passes. Miles draws 2 agents, 2 troopers, Optic Blast, Ice Slide, and then a Scheme Twist from the villain deck. Miles can't reveal, so he discards 2 agents and a trooper. He plays out, discarding a trooper. He takes out Minotaur to prevent her from carrying off a bystander. He rescues a bystander and a news reporter, drawing a trooper. He passes. Harrison draws the Amazing Spider-Man, Deep Freeze, Optic Blast, and then a Sentinel from the villain deck. He plays the Amazing Spider-Man, drawing an agent, a trooper, and Web Shooter, which he plays. He rescues a bystander and then draws a trooper. He plays Optic Blast into Deep Freeze, drawing an agent. He plays out and has accepted his fate of recruiting the Spider-Man cards and picks up Responsibility, replacing it with Endless Inventory. He takes out the Sentinel in the sewers and KOs an agent. He passes. Miles draws 3 agents, Determination, X-Men United, Ice Slide, and then a Sentinel from the villain deck. Wanting to recruit Unending Energy, he plays Determination, discarding Ice Slide. He plays out and recruits Unending Energy, replacing it with Pickpocket. He takes out Giganto, but it burrows to the streets. He passes. Harrison draws 3 agents, 2 troopers, Repulsor Ray, and then a bystander from the villain deck, which will be captured by the Sentinel. He plays out and decides to recruit Endless Inventory, replacing it with Arc Reactor. He takes out the Sentinel with a bystander, rescuing a Radiation Scientist, which will allow us to KO a hero. With that and the Sentinel fight trigger, he KOs an agent and a trooper. He passes. Miles draws another disappointing post-Giganto hand with 4 agents, 3 troopers, Unending Energy, and then another Sentinel from the villain deck. He plays all of his attack cards and goes for round 2, taking out Giganto. He passes. Harrison draws 4 agents, Responsibility, Endless Inventory, and then a Blockbuster from the villain deck, which will capture a bystander along with a Sentinel in the bank. He plays Responsibility, drawing another one. He plays that one, drawing an agent. He plays Endless Inventory, drawing another Endless Inventory. This one he plays is activated, drawing a Web Shooter and a Deep Freeze. Deep Freeze draws a trooper, and Web Shooter rescues a bystander and draws an agent. He plays out, trying to move back into collecting tech cards by recruiting Arc Reactor, replacing it with Responsibility. He takes out the Sentinel with a bystander, rescuing a Radiation Scientist, which gives him 2 KOs. He KOs 2 agents. He passes. Miles draws the dream hand on his 3rd attempt with Giganto, drawing 2 agents, Optic Blast, 2 Ice Slides, Determination, Unending Energy, X-Men United, and then a Sentinel from the villain deck. He plays out, using Unending Energy to prevent discards, and X-Men United last for a whopping 32 damage. He hits Mr. Sinister once, rescuing a bystander, a paramedic, and a news reporter, which will draw and play an agent. He draws Sinister's 2nd tactic, Telepathic Manipulation, which will capture a bystander from Harrison's VP. He fights Sinister for the 3rd time, rescuing a news reporter, drawing and playing an agent. He draws Plans Within Plans, which will capture a bystander for each tactic in player's victory piles, meaning he will capture 3. He hits him for the 4th and final time, winning the game. Peter looks over at his clone in the cage, then up at you. What do you think? Should we free him? We decide to free the clone. The clone looks up at you. I have your memories. I remember everything. Uncle Ben, Mary Jane, everything. And yet, I guess they are my memories. Thank you for freeing me. I owe you my life. I'll help you in any way I can. We add Scarlet Spider to the team, replacing Hulk. The time is 3 p.m. Thank you so much for joining me for another great game of Bageltop's Marvel Legendary Campaign. We got a few more adventures with Spider-Man to get through, and I couldn't be more excited. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.